And now to California, where a bombshell report from the Center of Investigative Reporting shows that doctors in the state's prison system were sterilizing prisoners as recently as 2010 without the necessary state approvals. From 2006 to 2010, 148 women received a procedure called tubal ligation, which prevents a woman from having any more children. All of these occurred at two California prisons, the California Institution for Women in Corona and the Valley State Prison for Women in Coachella. This was in direct violation of prison rules. Many of the women who underwent the procedure did so after having a child in prison. Now, the doctors in that prison system defended their use of the procedure, but former prisoners and advocacy groups are calling the sterilization coercive and reminiscent of eugenics. On to discuss this, I'm joined now by Courtney Hooks. She's a communication director for Justice Now, an advocacy group that's called attention to these sterilizations. Courtney, thank you so much for joining me. Now, it seems like the inmates gave their consent for the sterilizations. So first of all, can you explain why you consider these coercive?
Yes, certainly. So since 2000, people in California women's prisons have collaborated with our organization, Justice Now, to document and end the many ways that racially disparate imprisonment practices deny the basic human rights of family and grant the state the ultimate control and power over poor communities and communities of color, the power to control whether or not we can exist. So our findings after partnering with people inside California women's prisons on participatory research evidence a eugenic pattern of policy and practice with a devastating a devastating impact on the reproductive health of our communities and the people inside California women's prisons. So we have confirmed that since 2006, the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation has illegally sterilized at least 148 people. And there's reason to believe that approximately 250 people, pregnant people, were sterilized during labor and delivery since the 90s.
But Courtney, let me stop you right there. That's a lot of information that we've got coming in. Why does the state need to give its consent if the women already are?
They're not giving their consent. If you actually read over the testimonies that we've gathered and that people inside have documented from their peers, the level of foul play is absolutely horrendous. This is not a system of people actually giving their consent. You have one person in the article that Corey Johnson released, talking about being on the table, strapped down, ready to be cut cesarean delivery, and the doctor coming up to her as she was undergoing anesthesia, actually about to go unconscious, saying, "We're doing a tubal ligation." And she said, "No, that's not what's happening." She refused. He brought over a form, and she actually could not read it because she was going under anesthesia. She could not see what was actually written on the page. That's absolutely not the appropriate time. That's not standard medical protocol to be attempting to get consent for major life-changing surgery while you're in labor and delivery, while you're about to go under anesthesia. That is absolutely abhorrent.
Absolutely.
So
now, one doctor said that any inmate expressing remorse for having this procedure is trying to get a handout from the state. What is your response to that?
My response is that the department launched this illegal sterilization protocol with the federal receiver's knowledge, the same receiver who was appointed to the federal courts to raise healthcare provision in California prisons to constitutional levels. At least one prisoner dies per day. That's what the receiver documented back in 2006 due to severe medical neglect. So when you have officials who are working for a system that treats people so abhorrently and leads to death, I don't think that we can trust their opinion. I don't think that we can trust what it is that they're saying. Individuals have documented the abuses that they've experienced, and that is backed up by their medical records and backed up by documentation of what's been said when they've actually gone to these doctors. So I think that that's something to certainly look further into, and that's why Justice Now is calling for public hearings that do nothing less than the most thorough of investigations into these abuses.
It's all very interesting, and it brings up the question, who is ultimately in control of an inmate's body? Courtney Hooks, Communications Director at Justice Now.